Hey everybody. So this is, let's see, 325. This is Smolder, the newest addition to our rescue family. He's 325 grams. He's full grown. He's somewhere between 4 and 5 years old. We're going to say 5 years old because he hasn't had the best of everything, and so, you know, that wears on you. So I'm going to give him an extra year. We're going to try to trim some nails. Yes, we are. And we're going to try to help him out with some of that shed on his face if he will let us. If he won't let us go all the way, then that's fine. If he starts to act like he's really stressed out, then we're not going to worry about it. We'll come back to it. Okay? So Smolder comes to us from a very interesting situation. I mentioned it a little bit on his introduction video, but he was actually the first dragon owned by the young man who used to own Ruby. He was there first, he was there longer. And when he decided to downsize his number of reptiles, he decided to keep this little guy whose name used to be Henry. And so, you know, that was fine for a couple of years. And now the family is moving to Japan and they cannot take Henry. So they asked me, I went to talk to them to see if I could, they had a tank for sale that's bigger than the one that Ruby is currently in. So I've been wanting to upgrade her. So I thought, okay, well, that looks like a good tank and it's certainly reasonable. And so I went to text them a message and say, hi, I'd like to have that tank you have for sale. Could you send me a picture of it? And it came up in my phone as a conversation already had. So that was very interesting. And it turned out that this was the same house. And I said, hi, remember me? I took in Ruby. Ruby's name used to be Gobi, kind of like the desert, because they thought she was a boy. And so that was her name. And so he said, hi, I sure do. And I'm so glad you called because we are moving. And yes, here's a picture of the tank. And if you'd like it, I'll certainly sell it to you. And by the way, my son's red-bearded dragon, Henry, needs a home. So I panicked a little because, as you know, I'm still dealing with the death of Chimera and how hard and awful that was. And I wasn't looking to add another dragon to the rescue right at this moment in time. But, you know, sometimes if you're going to rescue, you have to just remember that you're there for their needs, not for yours. And sometimes you get a dragon who needs help, even when you're not ready, right? Right, handsome boy? So I said, well, what I can do is I can take Henry in. I'll pick up the tank and I will tell you that I will take Henry in and give him any rehabilitation that he needs. And I will make sure to find him a fantastic home. I can't promise it will be with me, but I will most definitely find him a wonderful place to be. And so that worked for the dad. And I actually said to them, would you like me to bring Ruby with me when I pick up the tank? Because they hadn't seen her in 2 years since I took her home, almost 2.5 years. And he said, that would be wonderful. I know my son would really appreciate that. I said, okay. Now, remember, those of you who've been with the channel for a while, Ruby only weighed 118 grams when she got here at 2 years old. She was a tiny girl. I know, sweetheart. Let me see if I can help you. So I wanted them to see her now at 675 pounds, or 675 grams, to see, you know, what she could have looked like. So, and also to educate the boy, because I feel like there is a huge grouping of reptile owners in Japan that are specifically bearded dragon owners. So I know there's a good possibility that he will get another dragon. And I wanted him to understand a few things. That feels better, huh? Right out of your nose. So much better, my love. Also, a little tip while we're here. If you have to get some shed off of your dragon, don't come at them with the same tongs that you used to feed them. All you're going to do is make your life harder and make them wonder, why the heck are you aiming food tongs at them with no food in it? Because, you know, that would be a silly thing to do, right? And so what you want to do is get a different tweezer. They're not expensive, guys. You can get them at the Dollar Tree or 99-cent store, Dollar General, or whatever you have near you. And use those because they might look at it like, what the hell is that? But the reality is they do not have any experience with these new tweezers. So number one, they're not going to be trying to eat them, which already makes your life so much easier because you'll be able to do whatever it is you're trying to do without causing too much grief. And they won't be trying to eat something off the end that's not there and wondering why their human has lost their mind. Why are you trying to make me eat air? There's no food on there. See, this way they don't associate these tweezers with their tongs, so they're not looking for food. Isn't that right, handsome boy? You are beautiful, Smolder. You really are. I love this shade of red. You see it so rarely, and unless you're dealing with a breeder, I'm going to try to get some more off tomorrow after his bath. But unless you're dealing with a breeder, you just don't see this shade of red. And yet this boy managed to get this dragon in this shade of red. Hi. From Petco. So, I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing, I think. So, yeah, that's all I know for sure. Also, you're very handsome. Also, 325 grams is about right for a dragon, hey everybody, who basically has lived his life on mostly a cricket diet. You guys know how I feel about crickets. So he has mostly had crickets as the main source of his diet, with the occasional mealworms. So what can I tell you about that? Well, what I can tell you for sure, now you see this tail up, this is a curiosity. This is him being fascinated in what's going on. Okay, this is not a posture you have to worry about. This is strictly curiosity, and I'm interested in what's going on around me. So if you see this, this is a good thing. This is not aggressive. This is not anger or frustration. You're a good boy, Smolder. It isn't any of that. His beautiful red beard is not black. All's right with the world. The reason by the way, that I stopped going at this is because I'm going to do some more of this shed removal after his bath tomorrow. But he was being very, very patient with me. He let me trim all of his nails. I've only had him 3 days, right? I trimmed all of his nails. I weighed him. I took some shed off of him. That was a lot for him for one evening. But he's still good. Hi, sweetheart. It's me. You can taste me if you need to. Nice curiosity tail. Beautiful arc. So yeah, we're still getting to know each other. So anyway, we had agreed that I would come and pick up the new tank, which I will also do a video on as I get it ready to upgrade Ruby. We'll do the before and after kind of a thing. And I want to talk to you about when you get a tank used. And I do recommend that you do that for a variety of reasons. But there are some things you have to know to do if you're going to do that. So I'll make a video at the time that I'm doing that. So we agreed I would pick up the tank and pay him for that. And I would bring Ruby with me so that his son could see her and, you know, how well she's doing. Now, this dragon will not be eating crickets here. I do not feed crickets for any reason. He's going to be getting dubia roaches and superworms and hornworms. So he's going to hopefully progress. I've also changed him to the appropriate UVB light and a nice warm basking light. So I expect that he will do a little bit of growing. His legs and arms are very thin. For an adult dragon of his age, that's kind of concerning. But again, crickets are fine for calcium because they're mostly bone, not a good meat source. Protein is not heavy in a cricket. So you want to give the meatier type of insects to put actually more protein on. So 325 is about a subadult size. So figure 9 or 10 months old is about what you'd see in this weight class. So it's okay because he's had mostly crickets. So we're going to improve his diet. He also, when I asked, what kind of greens are you feeding? He said carrots. As you know, carrots are not green, except the tops. So I don't think there's been a lot of vitamin and mineralization in there. Plus, I know he hasn't had any supplements whatsoever. So we're going to do all of that. And that's one of the reasons why when I get a new rescue in, one of the first things I do is I record the information I know about them and take a weight and, you know, see what I can find out about them so that we have as much information as possible to start with. And then we go from there. So, yes, Smolder, that's what we do. So, keep an eye on him because I'm expecting him to make some strides and some gains. Yeah. I've been holding him every day because I don't think he's been held very much length of time wise. I mean, he's probably been taken out and, you know, handled for a little bit or put on his bed or whatever, but probably not just sitting holding. So, like most dragons, Smolder likes to be sung to. He likes music. And he likes someone who's slow around him, no fast movement. Yeah. And someone who keeps him warm and gives him the time of day. You can see I'm using a small lap blanket here because I wanted to conserve whatever heat he managed to get from his basking spot today, which is quite a bit. He feels pretty good. I don't want him to lose heat if I can help it. So he's already had a poop. Pretty normal, little dry, but pretty normal. He's had a daily bath. He has had some super worms, and I've offered him a couple of dubias. He's only had 2, but that's okay. I think he just isn't sure what to do with them because he's not had them before as a food source. So got to work up to that. Yes, we do. And he's been given a couple of hornworms. And mostly he's just been really enjoying his nice warm basking spot. I suspect he probably had a colored light bulb that was not giving him enough heat. Now he has the right kind of bulb. It's giving him all kinds of heat, and he is just loving it. He's been spending quite a while up there. So yes, and he's been, looking around at his environment. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Smolder. I know I like you too. And looking in all the corners of his cage to see what's available to him. He got in his hammock and it fell down, and I felt really bad. So I went out and got stronger suction cups. So we've solved that problem. So now he can sit in his hammock, or on his hide, or on his rock, or in his basking area. And so, hi baby. So he's been enjoying all of those things. I think he's going to do okay. He's been very patient with me. He's being very tolerant. This is a very scary thing. He was purchased as a hatchling from a Petco and has lived his whole life as the pet of this young man. And I kind of felt sorry for him when he saw Ruby. He's like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. How'd you get her so big? And I said, what are you feeding her? And I said, it's not feeding her, it's trying to keep her from eating. I mean, she's, crazy. She was not a good eater for him. So he was pretty surprised to hear that, she would binge eat if I let her. So we talked about a little bit. I gave him some tips about what to do, because originally his dad said, is it okay if we go ahead and hang on to him and then bring him to you as we're closing everything up and getting ready to leave the country in a couple of months? I said, sure, that would be fine. And that I would make sure that there was a tank for him when the time came. Because originally his owner, this man's son, wanted a chance to say goodbye to him and, love him a little bit longer. And he wanted to feed him and see if he could get him to be as big as Ruby. And it was a lot. Well, when we got there, which is now a couple of days after the conversation, the dad said, I'd really appreciate it if you would take him today. And I went, oh, okay. I had planned to wait until this weekend to start putting away Chimera's tank and cleaning it and sanitizing it, which are 2 different things, equally important, and disinfecting it. And then, leave it empty until another dragon came along. And instead, we brought Smolder home in a shoebox, which I felt really bad. They said they were going to keep him for a while, so I didn't bring an extra carrier aside from the one that Ruby was in. Had I known, I would have brought one for him so he could have had, a warm place to sit. And, yeah, he could have had a warmer place to sit, and he would have been, felt safer. So, but I didn't. So the poor guy, all they had to use for him was a shoebox. So he rode home in a shoebox. Not the worse for wear. He did fine. We put holes in it so there wouldn't be any issue. He fell asleep on the way home, so that was all fine. And then when he got here, I left him in there for about 40 minutes since he was already asleep and it was dark and nighttime. So I left him in there and went ahead and cleaned and sanitized and disinfected Chimera's tank, which was really hard. But I did it and got everything ready, and you know, cleaned it, new substrate, paper towels, and everything. And put this little man in it, and he took right to it like a duck in water. He was so happy. So, you know, he's doing okay. And again, you know, 325 grams is a little tiny, but certainly much bigger than Ruby was at 118 grams. And he has a little ways to go, and that's okay. We're just going to give him the groceries and the right UVB. Yes, and the right basking temperature. And then we'll see what he does. He's really a lovely dragon. I mean, I haven't had any problem with him except that he doesn't recognize other forms of food besides a cricket. So that's taking some time. But he's trying everything. He's sampling everything. He had some collard greens that I think he liked, along with a couple of blueberry halves and a couple of blackberry halves and some grated yellow squash. And he seemed to be quite happy with that. And so he ate very nicely. And I'm going to keep offering him the feeders until he makes the association, oh, I'm supposed to eat that. Okay. And then we will go on from there. And he'll keep getting his daily bath because he was also a little dehydrated when we got here. So he needed to, you know, hydrate a little bit. So we did that. And, you know, we're just going to take it slow. He's been lovely. Yeah, he sure has. His eyes are very wide all the time. Like he wants to know what's going on. Very typical. The first figure 2 to 3 weeks when you bring a dragon home, they're going to do that, and that's perfectly fine. You'll notice he's relaxed already. His tail is down now. It's not standing up. It's just hanging out. Yep, that's yours. There's your tail tip. Nice to find out that he does, in fact, have a tail tip. You never know. Sometimes when you do the whole pet store thing, right, sweetheart? Yeah. You're so handsome, Smolder. You are so handsome. You are. Yeah. Merlin's asleep, so he's not really making eye contact with him. He does see Ruby, but she's also kind of just staring at him. She's not really doing anything but looking at him. This little man, well, we think it's a man. They've told us it's a guy. I have not been able to confirm that yet. I'm going to wait till he's rehydrated and put on a couple of grams, and then I will find out for sure. There's also some swelling around his vent I'm a little concerned about. So as that all resolves itself, I will keep you posted on what his gender is for sure. But we're just going to call him a he for now, since he was a he to start with. Yeah, but instead of being Henry, now he's... You're so funny. Instead of being Henry, now he's Smolder. And he has been just an absolute delight. So that is the new addition, guys. And he's going to be here for as long as it takes. And then we'll see. We'll see how he does with more handling and more feeding and a better diet. Yeah, more baths. And then we'll go from there. He seems to be very nice. His disposition's really good. He's a little bit anxious, but what I want to see is that going to resolve? Or are we going to have issues with this and that I'm going to have to tell a potential adopter that, hey, you know, he's only good for about 10 minutes and then you're going to have to put him back in his tank. You know, because there are people that are okay with that. Oh, look, back up. And then there are people who are not so okay with it. But he is a beautiful shade of red. He just really is. Yes, I would call this definitely fire red. Yeah. But see, even his side scales are nice and relaxed. He's not trying to hurt me. He's not trying to give me any grief, even though, you know, we're newly acquainted. But he's being a good boy. Yes, you are. You're very sweet. Yes, you are. So yeah, that is Smolder, the beautiful blaze red dragon that's currently staying with us. at Finian's Lair Rescue. I'll keep you posted on him. You'll see him in further videos. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about, Jared, you want to come and put Smolder back in his house? He's probably going to want to go to bed in a little bit, and that's fine. Is what to do if you are thinking about getting a bearded dragon. How should you do it? What should you do? Should you try to get a rehomed dragon, a rescue dragon, or a hatchling? Thank you. And we're going to talk about the potentials with that. And then we're going to look at some ads for rescue dragons, because I want you to see what they look like and what they actually mean when you see them, and so you will know what you're going to be looking at. So first of all, we want to talk about, you have to think about these things when you're trying to decide what to do. Now, I really feel my opinion for what that is. I really think that if you've never owned a dragon before, this is going to be your first reptile or your first bearded dragon in general. Because if you've had iguanas or geckos or anything of that nature, it's not quite the same. There are some similarities, but again, because, you know, reptiles are reptiles. But if you've never had a dragon before, I strongly advise you to get an adult male dragon. Few reasons for that. The males tend to be a little nicer than the females, a little more laid back. There are exceptions. I'm just saying in general. Also, you don't have to worry about egg binding or problems with ovulation like you would with a female. Bearded dragons that are adults, once a day, you feed them. Twice a day if you want to separate their greens from their feeders. If you want to give it to them all at once to kind of chew on throughout the day, one time a day. They are much calmer as adults. You can see what their personality is. It's already formed by the time they're an adult. So if you see a dragon that's older than a year old and you get along with them, you're going to continue to get along with them. So kind of a nice thing. Hatchlings have to eat 3 to 4 times a day. Your bill for feeders is going to be pretty high, and you're going to do that for a year. So you want to make sure if you're going to go and get one of these cute little hatchlings that are at the pet stores, which again, I'm not going to tell you not to go to the pet stores. There are arguments to be made, and there is a controversy about whether or not pet stores should even offer reptiles. I'm not going to tell you not to, but understand they're very commonly like puppy mills. You know, they meet some people who are indiscriminately breeding whatever dragons they own and then selling to the pet store so they can resell them to you and for profit. And they're not putting any time or energy or anything into the dragons. They're giving them the bare minimum of everything just so they'll be alive and cute enough for you to go, oh, I want one, and take one home. So some things you're going to have to think about is if you're going to get a juvenile, should you contact a breeder? Should you contact an expo? Should you, go into your local pet store? How should you do it? I think it's up to you how you want to do it. There are pros and cons of each. The nice thing about going to your local pet store is you can get a visual on them in real time. So if you walk in and you see, oh, look, there's, 6 juveniles in a little tank, and one of them is way off in the corner by himself, that dragon's probably going to die. Please don't take that one home. Just the reality. He's over in a corner and separated from the rest because he's not well and he's planning to die. You want to take the one that's alert and hyper and bright-eyed and no discharge anywhere and looking healthy. Check to make sure they have tail tips and toe tips. If not, there has been fighting going on. Sometimes pet stores aren't paying attention and they wait too long and they get a little bit bigger than just regular hatchling, and now they're territorial and they're chewing on each other. So you want to make sure that they're looking pretty good. Now, if they're missing a couple toes and they don't have a tail tip, it's not the end of the world. They're probably still fine, but understand that these dragons need to be separated that you're looking at. So anticipate, that there might be some behavior with them. And then if you call a breeder, you really want to make sure that they're not shipping a dragon if you're getting them from out of state someplace. They shouldn't be shipping a dragon that's less than 80 grams. So if they're willing to do that, be suspicious, because being shipped is hard on a reptile, especially on a baby reptile. So if they're willing to do that and they're only 20 or 30 grams, you might end up receiving a dead dragon. Now, ideally, they're between 60 to 80 grams. They're well packed with a heat pack. You've paid for overnight transportation, so you're there waiting for the truck to pull up to minimize how much time they've spent in transit. All of those things are perks to them and will help them feel better, live longer, etc. So something to think about. You want to make sure that you are ready to receive the dragon, whatever size it is. Male, female, adult, beardy, or juvenile, doesn't matter. You need to have a tank ahead of time. You need to have made sure that it's clean and sanitized and disinfected and ready for your dragon. You need to know what kind of substrate you're going to be using. You need to know what you're going to be feeding them because they're going to eat a lot. You need to make sure that you've got your temperatures ready so that when you come home with your new dragon, you can calmly and quietly remove them from whatever container they're in, and gently and easily, after you've introduced yourself for a few minutes, gently put them in on where their new basking spot is going to be, and it's ready for them. The temperature is right. Remember, if you get a juvenile, 104 to 108 degrees is typical and what they need for a basking spot. If you get an adult, anywhere from 95 to 102-ish is good for an adult. Most of them like around 99 to 101. So if you're expecting to get an adult and you got the basking spot around 99 and you end up with a juvenile, you have to crank that up. So you need to increase the heat, raise their basking platform, or add additional heat source. You have to do something to raise the heat. Also remember, they're used to being with their clutch mates if you get a juvenile. So they're suddenly going to be by themselves. It's a big transition. There's more food, yes. There's less heat, less interaction, less socialization. All of that ends over a few minutes. Okay, so give them a day or two to settle in. Continue to talk to them. Continue to introduce yourself. Give them food and water. They may not eat or drink. It's okay. Give them a few days. You might not want to hold them right away, but pet them if they will let you. Spend some time getting to know them. Offer food by hand, because you remember, this isn't a tame baby. This is just a baby. So you're going to want to start teaching them as soon as you can that human hands are a good thing. They bring sustenance and treats and whatever else they need. So you have more work to do with the juvenile. Adult dragons should already know that hands bring food. They should already have a level of tame. If they've been abused or neglected, they may have a level of aggression that you're going to have to overcome. You can do it, but it's going to take time and patience. It's not going to be rewarding for quite a while because what they've already learned is that humans can't be trusted. So you're going to have to reteach a few things. Okay, so in determining which do you want to do you want to be a parent to a new baby, or do you want to be a parent to an adult? Do you want to rescue or rehome a dragon? Do you want to get a juvenile? Now, some things to consider are, what age is the dragon going to be if you do get an adult? If you get a hatchling, you can expect them to be, in the pet stores, you can expect them to be probably between 2 and 3 months old. In an expo, they might be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months, okay? What is the condition of the dragon? What to look for? Clear eyes, clear nose, clear ears. No discharge from any of those places. No fuzzy look, no squinting eyes, no, their head should be upright and proud and looking around the world. They should not have their head low and sinking in and on the ground. That's not a healthy dragon. They should have skin and scales that look well kept. There shouldn't be missing scales. There shouldn't be sores. There shouldn't be black spots. There shouldn't be mites. There shouldn't be obvious parasites. They shouldn't have diarrhea. Their vent should be clean and closed. It should not be laying open. It should not be full of bacteria. There shouldn't be anything sticking out. Sometimes you'll get an adult male and they will have a sperm plug, and you're going to probably have to help them remove that so that they can close their vent. So these are things you have to consider. So that's, we're talking right now about the condition of the dragon. If you see anything to the opposite, you see scales falling off in an area, skin that looks like it's been, in a fight, or it's had a burn, or it just in general doesn't look well. It's all wrinkly, it hasn't had any water in forever. That is not the animal you want. If you are thinking about, cost is a factor for me. Okay, then you might want to consider, okay, I've gotten the tank and I'm ready. And please, for everyone's sake, please get a front opening terrarium. Leave the fish tanks for the fishes. Okay? Dragons do not like everything to come at them over their heads. Okay? Because they're a delicacy for a lot of birds of prey. So they know what comes over their head is likely going to be a danger to them. So if you're constantly, everything you do to them is over their head, it just adds to their anxiety. Not that they can't get used to it, they can, but really, do you want to have to make it an endurance test, right? Especially if you have a juvenile, because they're trying to get used to a world in general. Like, you don't want them to have to, fight for everything and try to overcome being afraid and, all of that. So if you remember, please get a front opening terrarium. It's so much better to come at them this way than this way, okay? Again, I don't care if you get your tank brand spanking new. It's fine. Be sure that you get a 40-gallon breeder or larger, not smaller, larger. I personally think, even if you get a hatchling, get a 40-gallon tank, put in a piece of cardboard halfway across so that you've made it smaller for them till they're big enough. Then all you have to do is remove the cardboard, and then they have access to the whole tank. Because it's a real pain to get a 20-gallon tank and you only have it 3 or 4 months and now it's too small. So you need to make sure that you're prepared for them to grow, okay? Because it happens faster than you think. Remember, they go from hatch to adult in 1 year, 12 months. It's not a lot of time. That's the same reason that if you take a hatchling and you screw up their UVB, their heat, their calcium intake, their protein amount, the damage that you can do to them in that first year because their growth rate is so exponentially crazy. That damage often will last a lifetime. This is a lot of pressure. That's another reason why, if you've never had them, you might really want to consider an adult. Okay. Hopefully, however you get your dragon, you've considered the cost. How much are you willing to pay? You can get a dragon anywhere from $25 to $525. It's based on what you're looking for. If you want a designer dragon that you want a specific color, you want a very, very red dragon, or you want a great big bright yellow dragon, or you want a zero dragon, which is basically white, or you want only a dunner with certain bars on the side, or you're looking for a purple paradox. Okay, expect to pay more. That's the nature of the beast, literally. I find that ridiculous. Number one, there have been studies going on now for 7 or 8 years about the fact that we are shortening their lifespan when we play with their genetics. So if you're going out of your way to get a designer dragon, instead of having them 15 to 20 years, 10 to 12, maybe all you get, strictly because we've played with their genetics. So they're not your typical lifespan. The gray normal scale dragons live the longest. I think it's kind of interesting that the ones that look the most prehistoric are the most longest lasting. Okay, personal preference. You can have whatever you want. Just know going in what you're looking at. So, and you want to see the dragon. So you want to be able to evaluate the condition of the dragon. Because what you do not want to do is purchase a sick dragon. One of two things is going to happen. It's going to die because it was already ill when you got it and you didn't know. There are certain things that are kind of typical, like coccidia is very normal in these dragons. If you don't know they have it, and you probably won't for a while, once you've had dragons for a while, then you see it. Like, you'll know right away. But that takes a while. That's an experiential thing. When you first get a dragon, you're probably not going to know. And if you don't treat it when it has it, eventually it's going to take over its system and it's going to die. If it has parasites, probably not going to live a real long time and might infect any other dragons or reptiles you have in the house. Always observe quarantine at least 3 weeks. Longer if anything shows up, but at least that long. Make sure that you're taking steps to ensure cleanliness when you're handling your reptile till you know everything is okay. So again, your cost is going to have variables. Juveniles are generally less, but not always. If you're getting a dragon that's rehomed, that can be anywhere from free to a couple of $100s would be typical. But again, expect that you're not going to know everything and not everyone's going to be truthful. So you're going to have some veterinary cost, because the first thing you should do, regardless of how you get your dragon or how old it is take a fecal into your local veterinarian that takes exotics. One, to make sure that they're not harboring something you need to treat right away. And two, to make an acquaintance out of your exotic vet in case you've not met them. I have one vet in one town that's north of me for my dragons. I have another vet that's here in the town I live in for my dogs. Because one doesn't take exotics and one does. So go in, get acquainted, bring a fecal sample. Hi, I just got a new bearded dragon. I just want to have the fecal run to make sure everything's okay. When can I schedule a well check? Find out everything you can. If you're concerned about the cost, ask how much is a new patient exam for a bearded dragon, and is there anything you need to bring or do? And then you just show up and go. If you have a healthy dragon and everything is going fine, everybody's happy, everything's developing normally, you should only need to go once a year. Take a fecal in before they go into brumation, make sure everything is good, and then you and your dragon go on with your life. Now, the perk of having a juvenile is you're providing the care. So hopefully you've taken care of everything and it's great. And dragon's doing beautifully and it's getting plenty of UVB and it's getting natural sunlight and it's getting all the calcium it can take and it's getting plenty of heat and it's beautiful and doing fine. Great. I hope that for all of you. Now, if you find out that you have a dragon and suddenly it's not looking right, it's not acting right, it's not behaving normally, it's not, acting the way it was, it's making a clicking noise, it's coughing, it's sneezing, it's gaping when it's not normally gaping. Any of these things can indicate illness. And the thing with reptiles is you have to act quickly. A vet that takes exotics will know that. So if you are going to take your dragon in, if you call them and say, hey, I think my bearded dragon is sick, when is the quickest I can get in there? They should say within 24 hours. If they don't, I would really seriously consider finding another vet, because these creatures have the distinction of being both a prey animal and a predator, right? They're a predator to insects, they're a prey animal to birds of prey and larger lizards and whatnot. So they're very stoic. They won't show it when they don't feel well as long as they possibly can. By the time they're showing it, they're really sick. So you don't have time to waste. There's none of this, well, yeah, it's weird, but let's see what happens next week. Yeah, next week may not get here for them. So you have to be prepared for that. Now, my exotic vet is always packed with patients. So what she usually does is she said, why don't you come drop him off? I'll check him out in between patients, and then I'll call you and tell you what I think and when to pick him up. Or if I keep him, I'll let you know that. Perfect. Perfect. Because I know that they're going to be giving him stabilizing care while that's going on. So you want to make sure that you make that transition as soon as you can. Because what you do not want to do is be in a crisis trying to find a veterinarian who will see your reptile. It's a nightmare. Please don't put yourself in that position or your dragon. It's awful. Okay. The importance of care, especially, again, if you're going to get a juvenile, when things go wrong, they can go wrong really quickly because its growth rate, again, is exponentially accelerated because its whole infancy to adulthood is 12 months. That's it. So if you are new to dragon keeping and you're not sure, or they're not using all their legs like they're supposed to all of a sudden, or they're tilting their head in a funny way, or they don't seem to be, they want to hide all the time, they're not coming out to eat. All of these things are a sign that you have to go and find out what's happening with your husbandry and correct it. Because you can correct a lot of things, even MBD. You could have metabolic bone disease in your dragon that you didn't realize that you caused, and take them to the doctor. They will tell you that's what's going on. They'll probably give you other supplements besides what you're giving them. And then you can go home, make the adjustment. And again, by the time they're an adult, you've corrected the problem and it goes away. And it's just that simple. If you get an adult dragon You might find out after the fact they can't see out of one eye, or maybe they don't hear, or maybe they've got some teeth missing. Maybe one of their limbs is kind of funky, or they hold it strange, or it's just a little off. If it's an adult, you can correct some, I say that tongue in cheek, some things you can at least improve upon, even if you can't fully correct it. But when you get an adult dragon, this is why you're looking them over. You've got to be okay with however they look. So if you're getting this dragon and yeah, he looks pretty good, and then we got him home and now he's just laying there with his head down on the tank and on the tank floor and doesn't really look that happy. Maybe he has depression. No, he's probably sick. So you have to be able to know where you can take them, what their policy is, and that they will get them in right away if you call and say that they're ill. In behavior, hopefully, if you get a hatchling, you're going to find out that, hey, they're a little hyper, because they are. They're like a puppy. They have lots of energy. They don't really want to be held. They want to run around, and they want to chase bugs, and they want to do it because they're babies. And that will continue for several months. And then they'll finally start to kind of chill out a little bit, and then you know, it's better. Now, they should always be active and alert, because that's a sign of a healthy dragon. But some of that hyperactivity phase will sort of wane as they get a little older. But you might have to wait several months, maybe even until they're full grown, before they do that. And then all the sexual maturity happens, and that can be a long phase. So just know, somewhere around 7 to 9 months, if you do get a hatchling, you'll be able to discern whether it's a male or a female. You are not going to know. Nobody is going to know in a hatchling. If they tell you they can, they can't. Unless they have paid to have them surgically sexed, they don't know. So you're going to have to be okay with not knowing. My advice is pick a gender you like and stick with it till you find out otherwise. Maybe Randall is going to be a Miranda. Okay, life goes on. But if you're going to be devastated and upset about it, this might not be the pet for you. Okay, that's the bottom line. And lastly, longevity. Now again, a healthy dragon who has had what it needs in its first year of life and then beyond should live 15 to 20 years. That's a typical lifespan. There are many dragons who have lived to be more than 20. I would say that's a gift if that happens. It really and truly is a gift. That's a long time, and that's an old dragon. And you have to remember, they're susceptible to the same things with the aging process that we are. They can get cancer. They can get MS or a form thereof. They get arthritis. They can get fatty liver disease. They can get cardiac issues. They're prone to it the same as we are. If you have been feeding your dragon that's an adult too much protein, they're probably going to get gout. And you're going to all of a sudden see that their hands and their feet and their toes are all of a sudden swollen. And you're going to wonder, good God, what's happening? Probably gout. They make a medication for it, and that's great. And you should start them immediately as soon as it's diagnosed by your vet that that's what's going on. Definitely, you need to make sure that you have them started on that medication. However, you also have to change their diet. The adult diet should only be 20% protein anyway. The rest of it should be greens and some occasional fruit and some flowers. Shouldn't have a lot of protein. So if you're overdoing the protein, that's what's going to happen, is you're going to end up with a dragon with gout. So be thinking about that. I have rescues. I already know I don't have 15 to 20-year dragons. And I find it upsetting, and I find it infuriating, and it makes me sad because I want all of them to live to the maximum amount of their abilities forever. And the reality is, if they've struggled the first few years of their life to even get basic needs met, it's ridiculous to expect them to live for 2 decades. It's just not going to happen. Okay, I've had a juvenile, I've had adults. I prefer adults, a lot less guesswork. You see how big they are. You see what their temperament is like. You see whether or not they're eating. You see whether or not they're tame or aggressive. You know what you're dealing with when you get an adult, always. You don't always know when you get a juvenile. You can think they're going to be one way and they turn out totally different. So I prefer adults. I also prefer to take in rescues and take in rehomes because I can help them most of the time. And that is my goal, because it is such a tragedy to me that people take these animals in, they do no research, they don't find out what they need, they don't find out where they originate, they find out nothing about them. And yeah, they can live quite a while because they're pretty hardy for a reptile. There's a difference, though, between barely living and getting by and thriving. Which would you rather do? And the fact that they are as hardy as they are works against them if they're in a terrible situation, because they have to try so much harder to survive. But they will. They'll try everything to survive. The will to live is fascinating to me in reptiles. They'll usually fight as hard as they can to a point, and then they just go, enough. And they go over to the cold side of their tank, and they curl up or they stretch out, and they just wait for their heart to figure out to stop eating. But they can be treated awful. And somebody finally figures out, you know what? I don't think we're doing right by this animal. Like, we don't have any time, and, you know, tired of buying crickets that die the next day. Like, you know, it's not working out. We need to find someone else. Or they move away and leave them in a tank somewhere or in a closet or somewhere, figuring, nah, somebody will find them or they'll die. Or they let them out, which, don't even get me started on that. If you take your animal outside and you let it go, you're killing it. You might as well just snuff it out, because you're going to give it a death sentence. It's going to die either by predation or exposure, because this is not Australia. None of the 50 states are. So you're sentencing that animal to die tortured. No excuse. Take it to a shelter, drop it off, tank and all, and go, take it, I don't have time, and leave. They will find a place for it to be, where it will be safe and taken care of, and move on. There are shelters who will try to talk you out of it. If you don't want to hear it, don't hear it. Go, leave. Here it is. Thanks, bye. And just go. Do not leave it somewhere unattended or throw it out into a wooded area and expect it to be okay. That never happens. Ever. Don't do it. You can rehome it. You can offer it to an elementary school teacher as a class pet. You can take it to a rescue. Nearly every state has at least one reptile rescue. Some states, if there are only one or two, will even offer to drive up and pick up your reptile from wherever you are. So the excuses are none. None. Nobody is twisting your arm to take these animals home. If you take them home, they are your responsibility. Totally. That means if you can no longer care for them, you have options. You can take them to any shelter, any humane society. You can even take them to most pet stores that do sell reptiles. They will try to rehome it, and they'll resell it, but who cares as long as it goes to someone that wants them. Exotic veterinarians, if you walk into their office and say, I can't keep this animal, most of them will take them and find a rescue like me or some other rescue and call and go, hey, do you have room? We just got a drop off and we're not really equipped for long-term care. Can you come in the next couple of days and, come pick them up? Almost all of them will say, yeah, we'll get there as soon as we can. There's just no reason to hurt or kill these animals ever. If you're finished caring for them, be finished and go. But don't let them suffer because you've now changed your mind. Or your circumstances have changed and now you can't care for them. Okay, do the right thing. Find them somewhere to be, or take them to someone who will find them somewhere to be. Everyone wins. It's just that simple. If you find yourself with a dragon and you're watching this video and you cannot keep them and you cannot keep going and your life is changing, and wanting to isn't the issue. If you can no longer care and you don't know where in your state to go, you can always leave me a comment. I will find out for you in your state where you can take them. No dragon needs to suffer. So those are the possibilities of things that you need to consider: the condition of an animal, the age of an animal, how much you're willing to spend. Try to find out as much as you can of the history of the animal, which can be really important, because if you get home and find out there's something going on, some kind of birth deformity, some kind of parasite, some kind of disease or illness, you need to let the person know that you got the animal from, hey, this is living in your environment. Do something. If you got it from a private house, you might have to call animal services or animal regulation in your state and say, hey, I think this should be investigated. I got this dragon from this residence and here's what I found out. And let them go see what's going on, educate the breeder, and go on from there. Plan on veterinary care. There's going to be some. They're going to find a way to charge you triple just by putting the name exotic before your creature. They charge triple because they can. So expect that it's going to take some money. Most of the money you're going to spend is going to be the upfront costs. Tank, lights, light fixtures, feeders, substrate, veterinary fecal check. That's a given. After that, unless your dragon becomes ill or you notice something off, there probably won't be a lot. Again, they're pretty hardy little creatures, but you have to give them what they need. Otherwise, they're going to be sick a lot. And the closer to death they are, when you realize that they're sick, the more expensive and harder it will be to try to save their lives. And you might not be successful no matter what you do. So this is not an animal you can throw food at once a day and then walk away. No, these animals are going to require a little bit more. Not a lot, They're certainly not any more work than a dog or a cat, for God's sake. But they're going to have some special requirements that you're going to have to do in order to make sure that they are safe and they have good health and their well-being is established. Once you do that, and again, it's mostly initial cost, then it's just replacing your bulbs every 6 months, getting more feeders when you're running low. It's maintenance. It's not as hard as the initial setup. So, but you, again, in order to make sure everybody's happy and thriving and doing well, you have to get the setup right. And that's another reason for your initial veterinary exam, because they can tell you in one checkup, one well check of your dragon, if something's happening in your husbandry that needs to change. And that doesn't mean you're a terrible person. That just means, hey, I'm new at this. I thought everything was fine. What's not fine? And they will tell you, and they will tell you how to fix it. And then they may or may not want to recheck. That depends on the veterinarian. They can be very important because sometimes you'll go in, maybe your dragon's got an upper respiratory infection. Okay, and you caught it. Good for you. Okay, get to the doctor. You get to the doctor and they say, what are the temperatures in your tanks? What's the warm side? What's the cool side? You should know. And you should check it periodically because as bulbs wear over time, they're not as effective. So what used to be 101 degrees might be 92 or 3. And that may not be enough. Your dragon may have gotten just cold enough to get a URI. So you want to make sure that you're very specific and that you know and that you're checking your temps periodically with a digital temp gun if at all possible, or a digital probe if you don't have a temp gun. The gauges that have the dial, just please throw them away. Just don't even buy them. Honest to God, throw them out because they're not going to be accurate and it's going to cause problems. Okay. They may ask you, well, how high does your humidity run? Do you know? You can get a gauge, a digital gauge that will give you both the temperature and it's also a hygrometer. It will tell you how much humidity is in there. Should be between 20 and 30. If you're more than that, now you're risking things like scale rot, mouth rot, sores on their skin, lesions on their gums, and a host of other things. If you have less than 20% humidity, stuck shed, dehydration, dry eyes, dry gums, membranes that are supposed to be moist, dried out. So it's not good either way. So you need to know how much it runs. If you live in an area where the atmosphere is humid, like if you're in the Southeast United States, you've got humidity to spare a good portion of the year. Okay, do you need to put in a dehumidifier in your reptile room? Maybe. You're going to have to gauge that. If you have a small fan running, is that enough? Kind of depends on your climate control in your house. Do you have heating and air conditioning? So, you have to make adjustments according to what's going on in your own personal living space in order to keep your dragon where they need to be. And it's doable virtually all the time. Now, if you live somewhere it's especially arid and you can't get an extra drop of moisture to save your soul, okay, maybe you need to spray their enclosure a couple times a day with a spray bottle of water. Maybe you need to give them a water bowl, which I normally do not recommend because I think you can get into problems with that. But if you've tried everything else and you cannot keep your humidity level appropriate, you may need to try that. Dragons specifically are desert dwellers, so their humidity is low. They are not chameleons or crested geckos or something that's arboreal that needs to be misted. If you did that, you'd have scale rot very quickly. They don't need that. They just need enough so they can comfortably shed, comfortably eat, comfortably digest, comfortably poop, and then comfortably look around and watch the world go by. That's basically what they need. They need to get out and free roam from time to time. They need to have enough exercise safely. And that means if you have other animals, you need to supervise 100% of the time. I don't care how wonderful they get along. Means nothing to me. Because I know all it takes is 1 minute for them to suddenly look like a mutant squirrel. And suddenly they're not getting along. And now there's a humongous injury. And you're devastated and upset. The dragon is not good. And whatever animal caused it is like, what happened to my playmate? We were hanging out. You need to supervise. You know your animals pretty well. But again, accidents happen. Most of them are preventable. But you have to think ahead. And you have to understand. Look down at them if they're playing on the floor with a dog or a cat or a goose or whatever it is you have. What would I do if something went bad right now? What would my action be? Would I grab the dragon? Would I grab the other animal? Would I get down there and separate them? Like, what would I do? And if there's an injury, what will I do? Do I know enough about first aid? How to take care of them? Especially if they're bleeding. There's not a lot of blood in a 1-pound animal. So, do you know what to do? If you come home and you look in the tank and they've broken a leg, do you know how to safely transport them to the vet? Because that's a vet fix. Thinking ahead can save you unbelievable pain and suffering, and your animal too. So keep it in your mind. Now what I'm going to do is, in case you have made the decision that, I don't think hatchlings are for me. I think maybe I need to look at rescue and rehome dragons. Okay, let's talk about the difference. A rehome is an animal who is been fine, is doing fine, is eating fine, has been perfectly fine, and just can't stay where they are anymore. Okay, these are the easiest ones to get. Most of the time, you're going to get them, you're going to take them home and go, I just need to make sure you've got the right lights and the right groceries, and welcome to the house. We'll hang out and get to know each other as we can. Great. Okay, a rescued dragon is a dragon that needs actual care. It's not just they were fine and now they have to be somewhere else. It's they've been neglected. They've been abused. They have missing body parts. They have bones sticking out because they're so thin. They have mouth rot. They have no fat pads on their head and their tail is sucked in till their hip bones are sticking out. You can find pictures of that about Chimera from when we first got him. It says Zeus day 1. You can look at that video anytime and you'll see what that looks like. It's incredibly sad. They may have things though that are zoonotic, which means contagious to you. They may have things that are contagious to other dragons. So if you have more than one, which happens a lot because you get them and you enjoy them so much, you end up with more than one. You have to remember quarantine, 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 because you will be devastated if you bring in a dragon that has adenovirus or yellow fungus or an acute upper respiratory or a parasite or coccidia, and then it gives it to the rest of your dragons. Imagine wiping out your whole group of dragons. So again, you want to make sure that you're maintaining appropriate quarantine and safety until you know. How will you know? When you get the fecal back. If you get the fecal back and the fecal is normal, and you've had them for 2 weeks and they're eating and pooping and bathing normally, then I would say it's okay to lift quarantine. However, if you get a fecal back and it's got problems, your dragon is not cleared till they've had a clear fecal and it's been at least 2 weeks. So if that means you found out they did have a parasite, maybe they have worms, maybe they have coccidia, maybe they have mites. Okay, any of that has to be cleared up, verified with a new fecal, and at least 2 weeks later to make sure that you're not spreading something that you don't want to keep up with. And remember too, if they have anything that shows up in their fecal, their tank cleanliness is going to be absolutely essential. So if you normally keep them on a loose substrate, and again, I don't recommend that, but if you do, you may have to put them in another tank. Call it your sick tank or your medical tank or whatever. You may have to put them in there on newspapers or paper towels while you're treating this, so that when you fold that up and get it out of there and take your Clorox wipes and wipe it down, that you're killing whatever's in there. Because if you don't, you will never get rid of it. It'll just be an ongoing saga of sorrow. Okay, so that all being said, I use a site normally when I'm not taking a dragon that has been referred to me. If you do rescue, after a while, you will start finding out that dragons find their way to you. Word of mouth. You've adopted out a dragon to somebody who's in love with it, and then they tell people. Or they hear somebody say, oh my God, I can't keep my dragon. I know exactly where to send it. There's this lady. So you find out the dragons will come to your door. However, every so often, I use the rescueme.org site, rescueme.org. This site I like because you can actually put in specifications. So, like, I have my zip code, and I want to be notified on what breed. Reptiles. I could be specific and say bearded dragons within X amount of miles. I said 50 miles because I'm okay going an hour each way. Gets more than that, we have to talk about meeting up. But that's my criteria. So anytime a new reptile hits the site, I get an email with the listing. I like that it does that, because once you look at the listing, you see the animal, they put a picture up, the story, whether or not they want an adoption fee. That's another thing beware of. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to email. You can email or phone or text the person listing, and then find out if this is going to be a match and is this going to work out. Now, please be careful about adoption fees, because again, if you're getting a rescued dragon, and several of these are rescues, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you money anyway, just in fresh bulbs and feeders and greens. So you're already going to be putting out money. If you find out that they are ill or injured or whatever else, it's even more money. I don't think you should pay for a sick dragon. That's my position. I have paid for a couple of dragons because I knew if I didn't, they were going to die within days. I went ahead and I bit the bullet and I paid, and I took them home to rehab. Most of the time, though, if there's an adoption fee, if it's somebody who really wants the best for their animal, you can negotiate that out. You know, listen, I'm going to have to drive an hour each way, and you're not offering the tank, which means I'm going to have to use my tank and all of my supplies. So I'm not going to be able to give you $100. Do you want to hang on to the dragon? And if you don't find a home, you can call me back. I'm happy to take the dragon, and I rescue dragons for a living. However, I don't pay for dragons that I can see from the picture are going to need some specialized care and or veterinary care, because that's going to cost me now money to take care of this dragon that you're trying to get rid of. So that's how I handle it. If money is no object and you want to pay them money just to get the dragon away, God love you, do it. Go ahead. I just think it's weird. I don't think you should pay for a sick animal that you're going to be rehabbing. But, you know, some people will ask for an adoption fee because they want you to have skin in the game. They want to believe that they're giving their dragon to somebody who's interested and going to take care of it the way they haven't been able to. Okay, that's commendable. It's also a farce, because if you think charging somebody 30 or 40 or 50 bucks is going to mean automatically that it's a good invested home, it doesn't. It just doesn't. You need to look for other factors. Are they knowledgeable in the care of dragons or reptiles? Have they ever had one? I mean, you know, you can ask a question, right? There's no harm, no foul. If you don't find out, okay, you still have the choice at any time to pursue or decline. But I want to show you these specifically. This is, now, again, I'm in Southern California, okay. This is 1 week's worth. There were 11 hits for bearded dragons in a 7-day period. Believe me when I tell you, they're posted there a lot. And I could, again, specify breed. I could say bearded dragon only. Or I could say bearded dragon and chihuahuas only. You can get any animal and get notified. So, again, whatever floats your boat. You can also, other ways to do it. You can, I would say, always do word of mouth, because you never know when people are going to hear. Let the exotic veterinarian know, hey, I'm doing rescues now, bearded dragons. I have 2 open tanks. If you hear of anybody, please let me know. If they need a place to put them, I'm available. Your local shelters, because they don't really like to house reptiles. They're not really equipped for it. They will do it for a period of time until they can get it placed or in a rescue. They don't enjoy it, though. So if you tell them, hey, I'm a foster possibility, oh, they'll be all over it. So something to consider. This is the first one. Now, it says, Squash is estimated to be 1.5 to 2 years old. He was rescued from a shelter. He is super outgoing and extremely social. He loves to run around your room and explore your bed. He loves baths and enjoys kale. He would be perfect with children, as he loves everyone and will tolerate being held roughly. Squash. And you notice this one has an adoption fee of $100. And this is an adult bearded dragon. I can tell you right now, when I see this ad, this dragon is undersized. His scales look pretty good. His skin looks pretty good. His head is up. Eyes are a little squinty. That arm might have some MBD. I don't know. I'll have to see him try to bend it and use it. But this is going to take some work. You don't really know how much. Right off the bat, he's going to need groceries and time. What else he might need remains to be seen. He's clearly undersized. Something to consider, okay? That's the first one. This one, oh, help me. Okay, Here's the ad. 11-month-old female bearded dragon for adoption to a good home. She'll come with her 40-gallon tank, both required heat lamps, decor, vitamins, etc. that I have for her. Asking for $400 OBO, or best offer. Originally paid around $600 to $800 for everything I have. 11-month-old female. So she's on the breach of adulthood, okay? She's technically still a subadult, but she's getting to the adulthood phase. $400. Yeah, you're getting her tank. Yeah, you are. And everything that comes with her. That's a lot of money. When I look at her, now, first of all, there's a little hand there. So you get an idea of how long she is. But you also see there's a bit of a bend in her back, which might be totally normal because of her position that she's sitting. But I don't know that because I haven't seen her sitting straight. So I don't know if she is straight, if it's going to stay that way and it's definitely an actual curvature, or if it's just, you know, she's sitting in a funky manner. I would not spend $400 to find out. But if you were going to put out that kind of money anyway, and you can get this animal with all of her stuff, might be a good thing to do. It's up to you. Sounds like she's only had one owner. That can be nice. If you get an animal that's had 5 owners, that can be a problem. Okay, so that's number 2, the little subadult. All right. This poor little boy. Oh my God. Okay. This is Syrup. Some of these names, people, but I'm telling you, 90% of them are named Spike, which makes me want to gag. So, okay. Syrup is a male, supposedly. He's a rescue that I got a year ago from someone else who neglected him. Okay, this is already 2 owners, right? He does have MBD, metabolic bone disease, but he doesn't let that stop him. That means he can still walk. That's what that means. He loves to climb and explore and eat a lot. Although, because of his MBD, he does require a little special care with his displaced jaw. He has a rubber jaw. Basically, it's flexible and flimsy from the MBD. He is tolerant to handling and not aggressive towards people, but unfortunately very aggressive towards other beardies. Yeah, they're supposed to be. I don't recommend keeping him in the same room with other beardies, even if they're in separate tanks. He definitely has a lot of personality, so you'll never get bored of him. And if you want a lizard you can take out for adventures, he is your little guy. Here's Syrup. Now, see how low to the ground he's standing? And you can see how short his nose is, his snout. That's part of the deformed jaw, the displacement right there. He's probably going to need special needs in terms of feeding him. You're probably going to have to assist him. So you have to think about that. Now, you can always inquire. You can email or you can call and say, what level of care are we talking about? And see if it's something you're up to. But at least you know this person was up front. Hey, this dragon's got some issues. Interestingly enough, this one does not have an adoption fee. So I'm assuming that means they're just trying to find somebody who's willing to take care of him, even though he's not perfect, quote unquote perfect. Okay, next one. About the bearded dragon. 20-gallon glass double door removable screen tops. Feeding bowls, log, branch, hammocks, toys, and food, plus tub with live crickets and a heat lamp. Best offer. Now they're saying that the age of this dragon is a baby. I would venture to say that is an adult, maybe a subadult or a size of a stunted little baby. So that would be something you'd have to decide if you're interested in taking a wild card. This dragon is a wild card. He looks pretty good, but you won't know till he's in your hands. Okay. This one just says age, bearded dragon, age, young adult, adoption fee, $100. That's all you know. So good luck, right? This one, about bearded dragon, young adult, male, adoption fee, $50. Well, he's a young adult, okay, but he's very small. His nails are very overgrown. So, and he looks thin. So there's going to be some work required here. So you'd have to think about that one. Okay. Bearded dragon, adoption fee, $30. And that's it. They don't tell you anything else except that it's $30 for that dragon. And good luck to you. Okay. This one, age, young adult. They don't know if it's a male or female. Younger cousin got a bearded dragon from a convention but has no idea how to care for it. Living in bad conditions. May have a calcium deficiency issue. I personally have never had dragons, nor do I have the time to care for it. I asked someone who has a deep connection with these little guys to please take it off my hands and give it to the good life it deserves. Still eats well and moves around, but has trouble. Yeah, I bet it does. Now, what's hard for you to see in this picture is this dragon is missing scales all the way down at about a 3/4 of an inch stripe. His scales are literally missing. I can't tell what condition his skin is in because it's a black and white photo, but you get the picture. This has a serious issue. Scales don't just fall off for no reason. Something's happening. Also, very small snouted little lizard. Some are genetically that way. Some are that way because they haven't had what they've needed. A lot of MBD lizards look just like this. So there's that. And remember, this is a 1 week's worth of listings. This one says it's an adult female. Adoption fee, $100. My name is Acacia. I'm 4 years old, in great health and very friendly. I've been raised by my owners since I was 6 weeks old. I enjoy basking in the sun, and my favorite treats are grasshoppers and strawberries. I'd like to find a home that has experience with reptiles and can offer a loving and caring home. I love to be a new addition to your family. So if you want to spend $100 for little Acacia and take what you get, go for it. At least they were smart enough to say, we'd like her to go to somewhere where people understand dragons because we don't want to risk that. We've been taking, adequate care of her, and now we're going to give her to somebody who doesn't know anything, and that could be bad for her. Okay? This is Fuego. He is a 5-year-old bearded dragon. He is very social and he loves meeting new people. He'll climb right on top of them. He loves snuggles. He could do it for hours. He's very curious and enjoys being outside. His favorite thing to do is bathe in natural sunlight. He's the best bearded dragon. I'm sad to say I do not have time for him anymore. I want to find a home for him that he deserves. I have a 40-gallon tank I'm keeping him in, but I have an unfinished habitat I've been trying to build for him, and it needs doors put in to be sealed so it's safe for him to live in. He needs a larger enclosure, at least 100 gallons. That's an overstatement. So please only donate or only adopt him if you have the space available for him. I also have a small dubia roach colony, 50 to 100 adults and a few hundred babies. I have about 3 to 4 UV light fixtures, a solar heat lamp, and a bunch of other reptile supplies. I just want to find a good home for him. I don't care about the money, so I will give everything I have for him away for free. Please feel free to text me and I can send additional photos of him and everything I have. Now this person is just desperate for somebody to take this dragon and love him the way she did, right? She. So, you know, it's a consideration, and they're only asking $25, and they're willing to give you everything that goes with him just to make sure he gets somewhere that will love him. So you see, the stories are as different as the dragons. Now this one I had to do in color, you guys. This is the last one I'm going to show you, but for God's sake. The adoption fee is $65, okay? This is a male. They're calling this a fully grown tangerine bearded dragon. His orange is very vibrant in person. We bought him 2 years ago from a reptile exhibit for roughly $275. We are moving and unfortunately cannot bring him with us. He came with the name Cheeto and it stuck. Please help us find him a new home. Just ask if you have any questions or want information about him. If you'd like to purchase supplies and tanks, we also have some that we're selling, so feel free to ask. Okay, let's take a look at this little guy. Okay, number one, he may well be at least 2 years old. He is definitely not full grown. This animal is about as stunted as you could get and still survive. He's about the size of a 4 or 5 month juvenile. I don't know what's going on with him. His limbs look pretty good. Other than the fact that he's extremely tiny and has not eaten enough, I don't know what that's done to him internally. He might grow out of this with the right kind of care and be really great and big and huge, you know, in a few months' time. Or he may look like this forever. And his forever is not going to be 15 to 20 years, guys. Because in the first 2 years of his life, this is as much as he was able to gain. So, that was all 11 that happened in 7 days. So, I just want you to see what kind of information you might run up against and what it actually means. And what it might look like if you decide that you want to take a rehomed dragon. The people who go out of their way to try to rehome their dragon are usually the ones that, and I say usually, we all know there are exceptions. They're usually the ones who are going to give you as much of the most accurate story about their dragons that they can, because they truly are just trying to find someone who will love them in their stead, because they would like to keep them. They can't for whatever reason. Help me. Take my dragon, take all their stuff. And you'll know when you see the dragon which one you're dealing with. Okay? So please just be careful. If something sounds strange or they act strange, or, you know, they want you to give them money sight unseen without seeing the dragon, no, that one's not for you. Move on to the next one. And there will always be a next one. Because what I want for you, and I know that this has dragged on, and I'm sorry it's so long, but this is important stuff, and I really want you to understand. I want you and your dragon to live a wonderful, happy life together until death do you part. So that means thought has to go into it, planning has to go into it, understanding their care has to go into it, and understanding when someone has not been giving them adequate care and now they're trying to tell you they did. And you're looking at the dragon and you can see they didn't. But you can't be mean to them. They may well have done the best they can. They probably didn't have the information, didn't know how or where to find the research, and didn't know what was true if they could find it. So please take that into consideration, you guys. If you make people upset and you bawl them out, then they don't put them up for adoption. And we don't want them to neglect them to death. That defeats the purpose, okay? So I hope you learned something out of this video that was helpful. I hope everybody that's thinking about getting a dragon does, because they're very wonderful, fulfilling little creatures. And if you have one in your life, you're really lucky. Consider yourself lucky. And I want everyone to have the best experience they can, to get what they can handle and not what they can't, and have a wonderful, wonderful, adventurous life with your dragon, whether you're watching a movie together or gallivanting out in the sunshine or whatever it is you're doing. So if you have any questions that didn't get answered, leave a comment. Happy to interact with you. And there are 134 subs on this channel now, you guys. And I have to tell you, you know, you guys are the bomb. You really are. You're so awesome. Not a troll among you. I love every one of you. You're awesome and amazing. And I am so happy to have you on my channel. I can't even tell you. So, all of that being said, have a great week coming up. If you have questions or you want to leave comments, please do so. And we will keep on soldiering on for the benefit of these adorable little creatures who love us so totally, right? All right, guys, have a great week and talk to you again real soon. Night, everybody.